So, stalking me for 7 years. How did we get there? I'm sure you guys can tell that I've been a little reluctant to talk about the stalking piece. I think that's threefold. One, I would say, is the thing that scares me the most. Of all the things I've talked about, that's the thing that really gets under my skin and makes my skin crawl. Two, I would say, because it happened later in the timeline, that, we didn't find out about that right away. There were clues that came along the way, and it was over the course of like months and years. Three, we just have the least amount of information from the police about that part, which I'll explain. First, I'll talk about how he was arrested. He left fingerprints, like I showed you guys. He also left DNA. That was something that when he stabbed me in the head, because it was just a kitchen knife from my kitchen, when it impacted the bone, his hand slid on it and it cut his hand really badly. That's why when he was down on the ground, he was looking at his hands when I first sat up, like, um, and then he also left, I didn't tell you guys this yet, but he also left I think he dropped his cell phone, he dropped his ID, he dropped his credit card, he dropped his like headphones, all on the ground while we were fighting. So that was all on the ground in my bedroom. So all to say the police had plenty to catch him with. They used his fingerprints, they ran him in the system. He was in the system, he was on parole. So this happened on a Thursday night, Friday morning, and they arrested him on Monday at his parole meeting. But in the ER, met the detective for the first time. And I won't say his name, I won't share his identity, but he, I don't think I said this on the podcast, but he's very handsome. And we had the same birthday. So shout out. But he arrested the man who attacked me on Monday. And then from there, he was our point of contact for asking questions or any next steps in the. So when they told me that he got arrested, I was still in the hospital. I was high on a bunch of pain medications. I was surrounded by family and friends. So I was in my bubble and it didn't really sink in or process. And I was relieved, but at that time, I didn't really feel much of anything, to be honest. But then when I got out of the hospital, the detective warned me to stay off of social media, to stay out of the public eye, to not go back to my old address, and to find someplace else to stay, because he said, even though the man who attacked me is in jail, they don't know if he would have anyone on the outside that would potentially come to intimidate me out of testifying or come to hurt me in any way. So me and my family got an Airbnb and we stayed there for a couple months. My family stayed with me for, I think, like a month and a half. And I think I know it was in the Airbnb that I first started to feel this tickling, where I started to think, was he just walking by on the sidewalk and thought, I'm going to break into this girl's house today? Or had he been watching me for a few days? Had he kind of cased the apartment? Like it started to creep in this fear that maybe I had been hunted. That was how it felt. That was the fear. Look at the windows at night. At that time, I was staying up all night. I couldn't sleep. And I would stay up all night. I was in a lot of pain from my hand. Then the pain happened. But I would just stare at the windows and wonder if there was someone on the other side. So even though I was afraid, and even though there were these kind of unanswered questions, months went by without any new developments there, any new information there. Other new developments and other new things came in, like the DNA came in and confirmed that it was him, things like that. But as far as him watching me, that still was a mystery. It was about, I think, maybe 6 months after the attack. The attack happened in February, and I believe this was in like July or August, that I got a call from the detective. And he was in the car. I could tell that he was in the car driving, and he said, I need to ask you 3 questions, and they're going to sound really strange. And I, of course, said, sure, like, okay, anything. And the first question was, were you at a party the night of the attack? And I said no, because I wasn't. I had gotten my hair cut that day and like made dinner and ate it on the couch. And he said, the second question is, do you know Nipsey Hussle? And I said, I know his music. This was at a time when he was alive, but I don't know him personally. Um, so he said, okay. And then he said, the third question is, have you been to Arizona? And I thought about it and I said, yes. You know, when I first moved to LA, I had a boyfriend and he had family that had moved from northern Wisconsin to Arizona. And he said, okay, what year was that? And I told him what year. And then he said, okay, do you know the name of the city that you visited in Arizona? And I thought for a second because I knew it was like a silly name. It was like a funny name where my ex's family lived. I thought about it and I was like, I can't remember, but I think it's Happy, Arizona. And he paused and he said, okay, think about it and call me if you remember anything else.